Good morning. I'm Mitra Peduim. I'm the Vice Chair for the Planning Board. Chair Harris is off today, including with the Commissioner Bartley. So I would be conducting the Planning Board this morning, and we're going to start with the preliminary matters with the adoption of resolutions that we have. So number one is reallocation of Bethesda Amenity Fund, MCPB number 24-117. The second one is Dunstan Meadows Administrative Subdivision number 6202-40110, MCPB number 25-032. And the third resolution, Dunstan Meadows Final Forest Conservation Plan number F2024-0520, MCPB number 25033. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah. Move to approve the resolutions.
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Item 1B, approval of minutes. Minutes of March 22-25, minutes of March 27, 2025, and minutes of April 10th, 2025. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so 3-0. Item 1C, other preliminary matters, corrected Montgomery Auto Sales Park Lot 18, site plan amendment number 820140114A, MCPB number 25-018. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, we'll move to approve the corrected site plan. Or corrected resolution.
All for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Item number 2, record plats, subdivision plat number 220250530 Westwood Square. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve the subdivision plat.
Second.
All for aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So passes 3-0. We have one regulatory extension request. Colesville Gardens Administrative Subdivision number 620230160, extension request number 1 that staff has recommended approval of extension request. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve the extension request.
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
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 3-0. Okay, now we go to our next regulatory item, item number 4. Tevis Place Administrative Subdivision Plan number 620250090, Mixed Income Housing Community Plan number E20250010, and Forest Conservation Plan number F20250410. And our staff member, Emily Tettelbaum, is going to be taking us through the plan.
We have to switch to a new item. I would like to thank Commissioner Linden. It is normally the unofficial duty of the vice chair to second all the motions, and since she is presiding today, he stepped up and did a great job. So thank you all.
I'm just trying to up my stats.
I guess we are live, and I do not need to repeat the title again. Okay, thank you, and go ahead.
Good morning. For the record, Matt Folden, Regulatory Supervisor for the Mid-County Division. Before we get started with the presentation, I just wanted to note that this is an important day for the Planning Board. This is the first time we've had an expedited mixed-income housing community plan come before you for action. This is a deeply affordable project, and it met its 65-day expedited review timeframe without any extensions. Today is actually day 64 from acceptance, and there are two reasons that that was a successful project. The first reason is sitting to my right. Miss Emily Tettelbaum is one of the best project managers that we have in the department, and it was through her leadership and coordination that we were able to get this done on the agency side. And the second reason is the applicant team sitting at the table here. They were extremely responsive and thorough and constructive in addressing the comments, and I just wanted to say thanks for the partnership in getting this done. So.
Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. I wanted to thank Emily for the hard work that she has done. We really appreciate, and the same having you guys, and we really, truly appreciate this project. Thank you.
Good morning, Planning Board. For the record, my name is Emily Tettelbaum with the Mid-County Division, and as mentioned, I'm here to present to you Tevis Place, 3 applications, an administrative subdivision plan, a mixed income housing community plan, and a forest conservation plan. So first, I want to highlight what Matt just said about this being the county's first mixed income housing community plan, or MIC for short, that has moved through the regulatory process since the county council enacted a regulatory framework to encourage this type of affordable housing project in 2023. So quickly go over what a MIC is. It consists of at least 150,000 square feet of new multi-unit living uses with the creation of 30 or more dwelling units. An applicant for a MIC plan has to submit a document to the planning director that serves as a binding commitment to satisfy the affordability criteria required for a MIC. If you want to discuss the affordability criteria, I do have a slide that you can look at the end of the presentation. A MIC offers an expedited regulatory review by allowing a single application, the MIC plan, instead of 2 separate applications, the sketch and site plan that are typically required for optional method projects in the CR zones. And finally, a MIC plan has a 65-day regulatory review, which is much quicker than the 90-day period typically required for a sketch plan, and 120 days required for a site plan. So staff recommends approval of Tevis Place, all 3 of the applications with conditions. And just a brief intro about the project. It's 154 units with 100% of the units provided as affordable housing. Another really interesting feature about this project is that the applicant is seeking Passive House Institute certification, so it will be a highly sustainable building as well. So the project is located in North Bethesda. You can see here on the red star. And the project is outlined, or the property's outlined here in red. It's just east of a big WMATA-owned property that's currently developed with the North Bethesda Metro Station, which is about a half a mile west of the property. There's an office building, a parking garage, and 3 residential buildings that have been completed, and 1 residential building that's currently under construction just southwest of the property. And when this is completed, it'll make up a quad of buildings right here around a central green. And then there is a vacant WMATA-owned parcel just south of the property. Nebel Street has a lot of different uses, mostly industrial, kind of commercial in character, although there are some residential uses, and more are under construction. Right here you can see a property that is currently under construction with a Montgomery housing partnership project called the Chimes at North Bethesda. That's also a highly affordable project.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I don't remember from reading to is WMATA holding onto that property for any particular reason? I assume it's old construction property, but that's a fair
Which-
bit.
All
whole
the parcels?
There's a lot of vacant parcel. I happen to know the place fairly well.
So, actually, a good question, because something I forgot to mention here is WMATA's partnering with the county and state and federal governments to try to attract a life science user, a large life science development with, I think, over 2 million square feet on this part of the
on
property.
that larger parcel right
Yes.
there. Okay.
So thank you
Gotcha.
for the question.
Is,
The
is,
perfect cue.
is Aurora building all occupied?
Yes.
know?
Yes, I think these are all occupied. This is the newest building that's already constructed here. And then this one is currently under construction here. It's not shown. This aerial image was taken before the construction started on this fourth building.
And what are those other buildings? The one that you said just constructed, that's residential also, or what is
Yes,
that?
this one is residential. All four of these are residential. This building, I believe, has the Harris Teeter grocery store in it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
So the property that is subject of these applications is just over 1.5 acres in the CR zone. It's developed with a commercial building surrounded on 3 sides with surface parking. There are currently 2 driveways from Nebel Street that provide vehicular access. There's one here and one here. There's a bike lane along the property frontage, which you can see in this image here, and it's separated from vehicle traffic just by the pavement markings. And the bike lane is just adjacent to the sidewalk. The property doesn't have any significant environmental features currently. And so the proposed building is 145 units, all of which the applicant plans to provide as MPDUs, affordable to households earning between 30% and 70% area media income. The applicant plans to apply for low-income housing tax credits and is working to identify other types of financing for the project. The building will have a variety of unit sizes ranging from 1 to 4 bedrooms to suit lots of different lifestyles. Vehicle access is consolidated to one driveway on the northern part of the property here, which leads to a below-grade parking garage and a loading space behind the parking garage. So including bonus density for exceeding the MPDU requirement, the project density will be 2.8 FAR, or floor area ratio. The building will be 5 stories of wood framing over a concrete podium for a total of 80 feet in height, or 7 stories. The architecture responds to the triangular shape of the property by framing Nebel Street with the primary building facade with 2 smaller wings flanking a courtyard in the rear of the building. The uses facing Nebel Street on the first floor along here, including a lobby and ground floor units, are designed to help activate the public realm and enhance pedestrian safety. In addition, many of the upper floors facing Nebel Street will have balconies, which you can see here. The streetscape will be enhanced with street trees and landscaping along the base of the building. Unfortunately, this property doesn't have any overhead utility wires, so large street trees can be planted along the property frontage. So as I mentioned, vehicle access has been consolidated into a single driveway on the north side of the property, leading to the parking garage and the loading dock. 5 feet will be dedicated along Nebel Street to help achieve the ultimate 80-foot master planned right-of-way width. The existing bicycle lane will remain in place with the addition of a permanent concrete median buffer. You can see the cross-section here. There'll be a permanent buffer here. And the streetscape, as I mentioned, will be improved with a street buffer planted with trees between the sidewalk and the bicycle lane. So the zoning code does not require projects on properties less than 3 acres in size with only one frontage to provide any public open space. However, the project is providing some public open space along Nebel Street adjacent to the recessed lobby, which you can see here in this image. And this area will include seating and landscaping. The project also provides outdoor amenity space for residents to the rear of the proposed building. And this area will include playgrounds, grilling space, dining space, and landscaping and seating areas. So another fantastic feature of this project is the sustainability elements that are proposed. As I mentioned, the applicant is seeking Passive House Institute US or FIAS 0 certification. And so these are just some of the elements listed on the slide that are over and above code requirements that will contribute to the FIAS certification. And the goal with FIAS 0 is to net out the energy use on an annual basis with renewable energy. And I don't want to steal the applicant's thunder here because I think they're going to describe this in a little more detail to you. Regarding forest conservation, the 2/10 acre requirement for afforestation will be met off-site through a forest bank if available. If a forest bank is not available, the applicant will pay a fee in lieu. And this project earns what I think is a record number of public benefit points for the MPDUs, mostly because of the MPDUs that are provided above the code requirement. So they're earning 450 points for the MPDUs and points for proximity to the North Bethesda Transit Station and for providing the majority of parking in a below-grade structured garage.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
The transit proximity, they're just half a mile.
Yes.
What does it take to get 50?
I think it's if you're adjacent or on top of the metro station, then you get 50.
Oh, really? Is it easy walking path, or do they have to walk around Nebel Street? I don't know if it is through the metro property, they have paths for people to walk to the metro.
So because of the configuration of the adjacent buildings, you would walk on Nebel Street and then along, what is it? Marinelli, yes, along Marinelli Street. So it's an easy walk on existing sidewalks.
Thank you.
So we have one minor change to condition number 9B in the MIC plan, and this just acknowledges that some of the long-term bicycle parking spaces will be in a bicycle cage in the parking garage, in addition to a bicycle room on the ground floor. And then in terms of the analysis and findings, the administrative subdivision plan satisfies all the requirements of Chapter 50. The MIC plan meets the requirements of Chapter 59, the zoning code, and the forest conservation plan meets the requirements of Chapter 22A, and it conforms to the environmental guidelines. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you have or.
Since we have time today, can you show us the slide about affordability?
Sure.
I think that would be very nice to see. Thank you.
Okay, so these are the options for the affordability criteria. So this application satisfies the first one listed here.
Do we know if, maybe I should ask you, if they're for rent or for sale units? Just curious, not that matters.
Yep, sure. Good morning. Heather Delpolsky, Land Use and Zoning Attorney for the applicant with Wiregill. They are for rent, but I will turn to Don Nuzio with the applicant TM Associates to give any more detail you may want on that.
Okay, thank you. And before I let you go, I think it would be good because we have all of these residentials that we have there in the metro area in that block. Do we know that within the last 5 years, how many units we have added and what percentage of those units are MPDU? With the ones that we have and with the ones that it may come just in that block. It would be a good information to know in that area. You don't have to answer it now. You could tell us later. In the area that you have it yellowed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can follow up with that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so is there any questions? Josh?
I just,
Okay, here you
yeah, I
are.
just
Go
have,
ahead.
yeah, one question about building off Commissioner Pettawing's question earlier about sort of the path that folks would take to get to Metro. It sounds like so looking at this image, there's that shared, or it sounded like a shared kind of open space in the center of what's eventually going to be several buildings. And I assume that well, maybe I shouldn't assume, will each of these buildings have access to that space from well, just focusing on this building, I guess. Will this property have access to that space through the backside of the property? So in other words, will people be able to access that and not have to like exit on Neville Street first and then kind of walk around?
So that is something that we explored here, but there is a big grade issue. There's a big wall here, and then this is a pool, I believe, on top of a parking garage. So we did explore if there was some way to get through the parking garage to this green, but unfortunately that didn't work out with the grade and some of the other issues with this site.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And I suppose it's probably given the fact that the property to the south is currently under construction, and I'm not familiar with how that site plan is arranged and what exactly is going where. So I assume it was probably too complicated to figure out some sort of like access point through that property that's currently under construction, or maybe even some sort of like easement. But I guess what I'm getting at is it would be nice if there was a way to chop down the walking distance a little bit for folks instead of having to curl around on Neville Street to Marinelli. It doesn't add a ton of distance, but it would shorten it quite a bit if they could just kind of directly access that shared green open space and then continue down that way. But I understand it sounds like there's a significant constraint,
Right.
just in terms of grade and other things.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention, so this building under construction is connecting with this garage. It's actually going to be a shared garage between the Aurora and this building under construction. So it's built right up to this, right up to that adjacent structure.
That was what that was one of the questions I was gonna ask, is they're gonna be able to cut through that way and get onto, I forget what that cut-through street that goes north to south over there is. But I think that would save considerable amounts of walking through there. Marinelli has sidewalks, some of them aren't great.
Yes, definitely.
I'm wondering that even though if there are some stairs that they could do for the people that they can walk up the stairs to cut their distance, if there is a wall, I don't know if there is a space to provide the stairs that share it, or is it the wall just to separate the properties?
So, as I mentioned, that is something that we explored when this project first came in, but there's a parking garage with an existing pool on top of it here, and there's a big grade change, and then the next building comes right up to this, to the next structure here, and that's already under construction. So, unfortunately, that wasn't a connection that worked out here. But it is a great thought. It was the same thought that we had here.
But there's options to exit through what would be the back, I guess, of that property, go through, cut through down to that other street. Okay.
I'm not sure if that other property has a door on this side of the building.
I haven't been over there in a while.
Because the building is going to take up most of this property. I don't think there was an exit on that side, but we can check on that.
What about people that they are in Aurora? How do they go to Metro?
I think they would exit and walk probably across this green. And I don't think there are currently pathways through here, but there are roads that I think the county has federal funding or some sort of funding to build a road network through here. So that will probably make the path easier for all the residents in these 4 buildings to get to the Metro. I'm not sure exactly the best path now. They might cross the green and then go this way and then walk on Marinelli. But it will be easier once these roads are constructed on this section of the parcel.
I know, but if you think about it, just this area, that if we may have altogether 400 or 500 households, okay, maybe. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That was an easy way that all of them could share between the buildings to get to Metro, rather than coming all the way, go around Nebula Street and then come back to Marilani and come back up for people that at least are on the east side. I'm just thinking that it would have been really a good thing.
So for the record, Jason Sartori, Planning Director, I'm going to steal the screen here for a second and just going to show you, this is street view from the actual site, the Tevis site here. So if we just turn this, you can see the existing building on the site. This is Nebel back over here.
Yeah.
So you could see this is the parking garage that Ms. Tettelbaum has been talking about, and with the pool, I suppose, is up here. And this is the building that's under construction that's come right up to that parking garage. So you can see this is from the site. This is where you're asking if there could be access to it through here, which clearly would be difficult. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so
One other general
ahead.
question. Can you remind us what the relevant master plan is that covers this area?
Sure, thanks. It's the 2010 White Flint sector plan.
2010 White Flint. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have the applicant here. Please take the lead.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair and members of the board. Just for the record again, Heather Delapolsky, Land Use and Zoning Attorney for the applicant. I have with me 3 folks on behalf of the applicant. Applicant is TM Associates. We have Don Nuzio, Adam Stockmaster, and Zebulon Culver. We have Kevin Johnson with Johnson Burnett and Associates, our civil engineer. Rob McLennan with McLennan Architects, our architect. And then online is Nancy Randall with Wells and Associates, our traffic engineer. Just a quick comment with regard to the access. Yeah, we definitely agree that having access, from the west part of the property over to Metro would be great. It does look good on, 2D plan view, but there are a lot of great issues here. We did meet with Elcor, who is the owner of Aurora and also doing other development in the area. And I think we had discussions, but I think we all agreed that given kind of the physical constraints, it just is not going to work at this time. But we do agree it would be a nice idea. We're very excited always to get to planning board, but as Matt Folden said at the start of the hearing, even more so excited here. We are the first MIC plan. We are very honored and excited to be able to use that process. As Matt said, we completely concur. It was great. It definitely requires a lot of work and quality submissions on our part, but we hope and think that we held up our end of the deal to let this project get to planning board hearing and construction pretty quickly. So very excited about the process, and Don Nuzio will speak in a moment with regard to our experiences a little more specifically. We are in full agreement with staff's report and presentation, as well as all of the proposed conditions of approval, including the revised one that Emily mentioned in her presentation. So we don't have a formal presentation today, but Don was going to speak just a little bit more about our experience with the MIC process, a little bit more about the sustainability aspects, because they are very unique here, and especially very unique for a project that is fully affordable. And if you have any other questions, our full team is here, so we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, everybody, for being here today. My name is Don Nuzio. I'm a Vice President of Development at TM Associates. Prior to me being born, TM Associates was founded in the 1970s, has been in Montgomery County since its existence, and all we do is affordable housing rental development. in 16 states and DC, and, you know, happy to call Montgomery County home and see what we can bring into the market within Montgomery County from a rental housing standpoint. But that all starts with, you know, effective policy planning and then reality bringing in the development team. And I think a tremendous success about this development, and, you know, not to maybe a point of flattery, maybe a point of reality, but planning staff, MNC PP staff, and in my opinion, there's one word, and it's exceptional. There's really no better way to say it. Like I said, 16 states and DC. We obviously work with a lot of jurisdiction, rural, suburban, urban. Montgomery County, in our opinion, stands alone from the work and you know, ability to communicate with the development team at a conceptual stage to bring it forward. So I think it's the definition of what we all kind of learn when we're getting our degrees in school about what makes a true public-private partnership. And this, to me, is the framework for what makes planning and development combined successful. So it goes without saying from behalf of the entire development team, we're just grateful to be the first mixed income housing community plan and have the opportunity to work with you all. So it's really been a pleasure to date from the MIC process. So I just want to say that from, you know, the transparency and community communication lens. What we're also really excited about, and we've worked on another development currently under construction at 715 Sligo Avenue with Victory Housing and Green Street Housing and as we've looked at the MPDU program, we asked the question, you know, why can't there be 100% MPDUs? Why can't we preserve all units over a 99-year affordability period? Because as we all know, when there's a certain 12.5% base requirement, or maybe people exceed that by 25%, we took a step back and said our mission is to bring full affordable housing rentals into this market, and that covers the 30 and 70% AMI range. So it's truly integrated from extremely low-income households to the workforce of Montgomery County. Secondarily, as you've probably seen with the base underlying zoning, where we're allowed substantially more density, and, you know, we've looked at this and said, well, we could probably bring another 80, 90 units, studios 1s and 2s. And we said, well, how are we giving access to families in the 3 and 4 bedroom range that don't have down payment assistance, where the average cost of a household in this area of Montgomery County is over $585,000 a year? So we took a step back, worked with McLennan Architects, worked with our civil engineer and Heather Dolflowski to say we want to bring families here because these families, both low income through workforce, deserve to have access. So we've been able to really bring something forward and preserve those units over a 99-year covenant, which we're really excited about. And then lastly, the green features. We understand in Silver Spring, I believe there's a vertical geothermal system for a Life Technologies building, but this will be the first vertical geothermal system for multifamily. It brings about not only efficiency to the tenants through utility bills and things along those lines, where their utility bills will invariably be about 40% of what they would typically be in a normal conventional structure. But we also have to think about with the resilient build and the building envelope, it's their quality of living, it's noise control, as these systems are substantially quieter than typical HVAC systems. It's dehumidification systems, so the air they're breathing is better. The building envelope also creates a different level of efficiency for the building that provides also that sound buffer in this highly urban environment. Secondarily, because of the geothermal, we are going to be able to have excess heat, which will be able to consistently warm the parking garage as well as the surfaces to the rear of the parcel from operational lens. That also will help in winter seasons with snow removal and snow melt. And then I think also too, it really creates a standard outside of, you know, all the benefits we talked about of what's possible in Montgomery County. You know, just because things might, you know, be more expensive from a construction contract standpoint does not mean we should be not doing it. Does not mean we should be looking at how to make Montgomery County greener and more resilient. So the development team here today is really excited to bring, you know, this revolutionary development forward, and appreciate all your time today. And once again, happy to answer any questions.
That is really wonderful. I don't know how you do it because I asked this question when I came and for the item 1. You know, I'm an engineer. I understand construction. So making it so sustainable, geothermal is not cheap. The insulation is not cheap. Making it more tight is not cheap, okay? All of these add to the construction cost. And then you made it 100% affordable. I'm not a whiz in financing. I don't know how you did it. But if that is a possibility, I think you probably should put some courses that share your experiences, that how it could be done, and hopefully it's profitable for the developer, because we want them to have profit. We want them to feel good, not only in regard to design and helping the public, also they be able to take some profit that they can use it and build more. So we want you to stay in business, and the only way to stay in business is to get some profit. So, we are very proud to have this with us, and thanks to all the planning staff that help the review to work with. And I hope that we could get more of this in future with your help. So I leave it open to other commissioners for any questions or comments they may have.
This is just to satisfy my own curiosity. How are you planning on financing the project at 37 Day Lake? I may or may not have some background on that. But yeah, I just was curious. I mean, 9% credit or tax credit, or, I mean, HUD loan,
So
how's
we're
it-
looking at a twin transaction, which is combining the utilization of the competitive 9% credit that will be submitted in the May 16 round. We had a 4% application submitted earlier this year that is undergoing threshold review at this time. I would be remiss if I articulated sources that are not formally committed.
That's fair, yeah.
So I, will make that note. But where we are very excited from a state level is it's not utilizing any state subordinate resources, which is also a rarity for these type of development communities, which really brings out, I brought up the public partnership with MNC PPC. A lot of other local organizations are looking at providing substantial investment into this community through soft funding, through tax relief and other impact relief, which is making this, to your point, more expensive community feasible. But, I'm the one, looking at my ceiling at night saying, how do we do this and how do we move this over there? So it's been, I'd say, hundreds of hours. And, I'm joined by my president of development, Adam Stockmaster, who I think I called, 10 p.m. or 8 p.m. every night saying, do you think this is crazy and could it work? But we've been able to really hone in on the capital stack and vet all that prior to coming to you today. So we have a viable path forward.
Okay, good. I know, again, specifics of, they're not committed yet. But I'm curious as to how to do that. Plus, but particularly given the fact that currently there's some, what are we going to call it, uncertainty? Let's call it uncertainty with federal financing, particularly through the HUD loans. And I'm curious from a professional background standpoint, and I will not make you say anything more, but I am curious as to how you got this all funded, and I think it's really impressive. I'd like to see a lot more of that. That's really great. I don't have any more questions.
Commissioner Linden, do you have any comments?
Yeah, no questions. I'll just echo other sentiments that this is a great project taking advantage of what appears to be a really valuable new pathway for approval. And so thanks to you and your team for pushing ahead with this and kind of forging this new path and showing how it can be done. The deep affordability really is truly impressive. To Commissioner Pedoeem's point, like all the other, particularly on the environmental kind of sustainability side, the energy side, all the other components related to Passive House and maintaining that deep affordability, it really is a tremendous project. So, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the proposed 50% parking ratio is also quite good. I saw a note in the staff report that there might even be efforts to further drive that number down. I think it was maybe 77 to 154 units or something like that. But in any case, yeah, it's great, and thanks to you and your team for designing such a great project.
Okay, if there are not any commissions, we're going to go for, I guess I go for each item. Item A, do I have a motion for approval of administrative subdivision plan number 620250090 that staff recommending approval with conditions?
Yeah. I move to approve the administrative subdivision plan with staff conditions.
A second.
All for approval?
Aye.
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 3-0. The second one is, do I have a motion for approval of mixed income housing community plan number E20250010, staff recommending approval with conditions?
I will move to approve our first mixed income housing community plan. Yay.
Enthusiastically second.
All for approval of first mixed income housing, community housing?
Aye.
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 3-0. The only reason we don't have the other two because they're not here. I'm sure they would have been very enthusiastic to say yes or aye.
I have no doubt.
Yeah. And do I have a motion for approval of Forest Conservation Plan number F20250410, staff recommending approval with conditions?
Yeah. Move to approve the forest conservation plan with staff conditions?
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
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 3-0. Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got something.
Okay, we are back. We had an exciting item before. Now we go to the next one. We are going to item 5, local map amendment number H155 and preliminary forest conservation plan F202400990 for Pike Center. And we have our staff, Ms. Graham, here to walk us through the presentation, and then we have you're here again. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Again, for the record, my name is Tamika Graham. I'm with Mid-County Planning, and we're pleased to present the Pike Center Local Map Amendment and its associated preliminary forest conservation plan to you today. Just briefly, in terms of process, the Planning Board must provide a recommendation on this application to the county's hearing examiner. And then after a public hearing is held by the hearing examiner, that recommendation will be sent to the district council for a final hearing and approval on this application. In terms of our recommendation, just to quickly summarize, this rezoning embodies the aspirations of the area sector plan as well as Thrive 2050 general plan. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but just in terms of repurposing an outdated and efficient land use, particularly along a prominent mixed-use corridor. So overall, the application meets the requirements for approval. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Board vote in favor of applying a commercial residential floating zone to the subject property and to also transmit your recommendation to the Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearings. We also recommend that you approve the preliminary forest conservation plan with conditions and the resolution today. So moving from process to the site, Pike Center is actually surrounded by a number of large shopping centers along Rockville Pike. You can see here it's surrounded by Montrose Crossing to the south, Town Plaza, and Federal Plazas to the west. The staff-defined area outlined in red identifies the properties that contribute to the community character that may experience the most direct impacts of the proposed rezoning. So the surrounding neighborhood is generally bounded by the CSX rail tracks to the east, Montrose Road to the south, East Jefferson to the west, and Rollins Avenue, Twin Brook Parkway to the north. And I will say the staff-defined area primarily includes commercial properties that abut the subject property, but it also includes some medium-density residential uses, some that are further west that stretch towards East Jefferson Street. So bringing you in a little bit more closely to the site, Pike Center Shopping Center is located at 12101 Rockville Pike. It's within our 2018 White Flint 2 sector plan. The tract area contains 8.24 acres of land. The property is zoned commercial residential with buildings permitted up to 200 feet. It's currently developed, as you can see here, with approximately 80,000 square feet, and that's spread across 3 commercial buildings. So we have this L-shaped retail strip that's pushed further away from the corridor, and then you have 2 standalone retail pad sites that are closer to Rockville Pike. We have 2 sides of the property that abut the city of Rockville. I will note that there are no sensitive environmental resources on the property. Just bringing you up to speed with prior approvals on the site. It was platted in the early 60s, but looking through the site plan history, there have been several applications for this property. In 2009, the site was approved for the addition of those 2 pad sites that are currently existing. In 2010, there was an administrative approval for some minor site plan modifications that included parking, shifting, some of the lighting, some of the, and also extending the tantalization island. More recently, in 2023, there was another amendment that was also approved administratively, and this was about the parking, the applicant wanting to utilize the parking requirements of the zoning ordinance that went in effect in 2014. So this allows the applicant to have greater flexibility with the tenant mix at the property, and there were no physical changes as part of this amendment. So getting into the proposal here, the project, the floating zone plan proposes a rezoning of this property, which I mentioned is currently commercial residential with 2.0 FAR with up to 0.75 for commercial, 1.5 FAR for residential, and again, up to 200 feet of in height of development. They're requesting to go to the commercial residential floating, which would have a max of 2.5 FAR, up to 0.75 commercial, up to 2.25 residential, and the height would remain the same. So this would be to accommodate transforming the current development, which is the single-use shopping center with a lot of parking along the front, and turning it into what you see here, this compact, walkable blocks for mixed-use development. And so more specifically with the density, the applicant is requesting an additional 0.0 FAR for the maximum density, the CR, and then an additional 0.25 of residential density. So they are proposing 2 new blocks, as you can see here, and 2 new mixed-use buildings with a total of 90,000 square feet of ground floor commercial and approximately 806,000 square feet of residential development. So a little, just under 800, I should say more specifically, 780 units is what they're anticipating today. And so they would transform all of the surface parking into structured parking that would be provided at and below grade.
Can I just ask you a question here? Just for my own information, what is the advantage of being a floating zone, just changing the zoning to that? Why does it have to be floating? I just don't know why. Thank you.
Yeah, that's specifically from our zoning code. We have 4 different floating zones that can be applied to our commercial, residential, our employment office districts, and it allows a little bit more flexibility. So I'll actually talk a little bit more when we get to the findings. But as I mentioned, this gives them a little bit more flexibility with building vertically because of the challenges with the site. This is just basically another application process for them to get that flexibility.
Yeah, I understand that. My question was that, could we just change the zoning to what they're asking rather than making it floating, or are we required to have it floating?
So you're,
It's required.
Robert Croner, for the record, you're required to, actually, the county council, acting as the district council, is the only entity that can change a zone, and this is the way to do it. Usually what we see for floating zones is a R60, R90, or another zone that's much lower in intensity that is changing to a CR type of zoning allotment. This one already had a CR zone, and the only way to make the change to increase the densities on it would be to go through a floating zone aspect of the zone.
Thank you.
So the application will also provide 10% of open space as well as 15% of moderately priced dwelling units. In terms of phasing, the application proposes 2 phases. The first phase will consist of demolishing part of the existing strip mall, primarily on the east side, and the 2 smaller freestanding pad sites will also be demolished on the first phase. So building A with commercial and residential would be the first phase, and then Building 2 would come in on the second phase. And so in that second phase, the remainder of the building and the surface parking would be demolished at that point. This is a massing diagram with the image looking northeast towards the city of Rockville. You can see that it's the massing is prioritized towards Rockville Pike, fronting this neighborhood green in the center of the development, and then it steps down towards Chapman and Bow Avenue. As I mentioned, the maximum height is 200 feet, and so 90 feet is proposed for Building A. You can see here relative to the surrounding buildings, and then Building B is proposed up to the maximum of 200 feet. And they're proposed to be pulled forward to sort of hug the open space and to frame the central open space. We're a little too early in the stage to have architectural details, but the applicant has provided some precedent images. And you can see here again, it translates how, the height of the buildings and sort of the skin of the buildings would look. It also envisions that the aesthetic would be in keeping with some of the taller, higher density buildings that are that currently align the Pike, but it would have more, the buildings would have more modern detailing. So you can see here in this image, it's the proposed ground floor plan concept that provides, which includes internal truck loading locations shown in gray. The orientation of the ground floor is, of course, a really important component. It's where we focus on achieving the human scale. It's where the motorized and non-motorized movements occur, and ideally where they should be interacting safely. It's also the gateway to the building. So from this ground floor concept, you can see that the applicant is proposing a compact footprint that prioritizes activating the ground floor retail that has parking tucked in the back where we want to see it, and which is also required by code. You can also see that the truck loading and other utilitarian activities such as trash is tucked away. You can also see in the darker yellow and some of the orange spaces, those are the bike parking and residential lobbies. They're also intentionally set back from higher moving traffic along Rockville Pike, but they're also highly visible within this new internal street grid. So in terms of circulation, we have existing access points on the property that are highlighted in red. So these are 5 points of ingress and egress. In the first phase, the application proposes to construct private street A, which is where my mouse is. This will create a new access point shown in purple onto Rockville Pike, but it also provides a much-needed connection to Chapman Avenue, and that helps create these smaller blocks. So as part of the improvements, the application will provide a number of right-of-way dedications, and this allows them to meet all of our requirements of our Complete Streets Design Guide, and also addresses our bicycle and pedestrian plans. So on Chapman Avenue, 5 feet of right-of-way will be provided, and that will yield a 10-foot wide side path. Along Bow Avenue, an additional 6 feet of dedication will be provided, and that will be able to yield a 10-foot wide side path. And then along Rockville Pike, the application will provide 15 feet of additional right-of-way, and that will yield an 8-foot wide bike path and an 8-foot wide sidewalk with a buffer. I also want to point out that this segment is also identified as a future bus rapid transit corridor. There are prior studies that were done that settled on an exclusive center running transit lane for the buses. So that has been a part of this conversation. The improvements along this frontage will be designed with an interim condition until the State Highway Administration builds the ultimate design. But this improvement will continue to be discussed when the applicant comes in during their preliminary plan.
Can I ask a question on that? I think you actually just answered part of it. I was going to ask that specific thing about how these bike ped improvements would eventually tie into the future BRT design. And it sounds like we're seeing it as an interim condition, which I think is totally fine. But I wonder if, as more of these potentially come up along, stretches of Rockville Pike and we, urge applicants to consider or build out these what will be a pretty high quality facility for bike ped. I wonder if we can, I don't know exactly how to sort of, it's a lot of moving pieces, and I don't know exactly how to tie them, to try to build them in a way where they don't have to be rebuilt in the future or redesigned. Because eventually this could also be a way to sort of reduce the overall cost of the future BRT, which I think will include versions of bike ped infrastructure as well, potentially. And this could be seen as maybe a little bit of a marginal cost of the overall BRT project, but I guess I would hate to see many instances of them having to sort of tear up work that was done previously. And I'm not sure if, what, if any, conversations can happen with SHA or MCDOT over the next few years about, just informing them of kind of where these bike ped facilities are going and seeing how we can sort of maybe fit them into a future design for BRT if feasible, just so things don't have to be redone in the future.
Yes, thank you.
So that's just kind of me. Yeah, that's I know that's outside the scope of this. I was just kind of thinking out loud on that.
Thank you for that comment. That's an excellent point. I think that's also top of mind for everyone looking at this as well, to make sure that we're maximizing resources and, when things are maximizing the mobilization of each of the different improvements. I will say that this project is in its implementation phase. Construction funding is still being refined, so I think there's still a window of opportunity to talk about how to do all the things that you just mentioned. Moving into phase two, so there's an existing gas station here that has 2 curb cuts. So in phase two, these curb cuts will be removed. That's currently serve the gas station. You can see where the 2 red circles are. Both of the signalized access for Rockville Pike and the service drive on Chapman Avenue will be reconfigured. And then proposed Street B will come online. This connects Rockville Pike to Street A. And then all of the other access points will remain. The redevelopment proposes to meet its 10% requirement, or 27,500 square feet of the site area as usable open space. Out of this 10%, the redevelopment would provide 1/2 acre of a neighborhood green, which is highlighted here in the center of the development in pink. This is identified specifically in the sector plan, and so through this provision, the applicant is meeting sector plan compliance. We also feel like that the locating of the neighborhood green along Rockville Pike creates an opportunity for activation for all of the retail that will be on the ground floor, and also provide some visibility to the park from the corridor. So the remainder of the public open space is also shown in the green areas. You can see to the north and south along Bow Avenue. There's also comprehensive streetscape improvements proposed that would be in the areas that are highlighted in blue. Again, we're too early in the process to have all of the details of how the open space will be programmed. We also have conditioned the applicant to provide an interim open space to ensure that adequate open space is provided for the phase two, for the phase one redevelopment. So along with the local map amendment, the planning board is being asked to approve the preliminary forest conservation plan. In terms of environmental resources on the site, there are none. As I mentioned, so the property has a tract area of 6.7 acres with a little bit of off-site disturbance, and that produces a net tract area of 7.3 acres. And so this generates a 1.1 acres afforestation requirement, and the applicant will meet that requirement within a forest conservation bank or a payment of fee in lieu. What you see highlighted in this graphic is the proposed mitigation trees that are associated with the applicant's variance request. I know I just mentioned there are no environmental features on the property, but the forest conservation plan and the natural resource inventory looks at impacts that extend at least 100 feet off the property. And so there will be some off-site disturbance for protected trees that are located on adjacent properties. Of course, this will need permission from those property owners for removal, which the applicant is aware of. But you can see here where we have their plan annotated. Everything in yellow is proposed to be impacted, and the 3 trees that are highlighted in red are proposed for removal. So the reason for these impacts is because of the demolition of the property. So these trees will be impacted when the existing property is demolished. So based on the diameter of the impacted trees and our replacement ratio, the applicant is required to provide 9 mitigation trees with a minimum of 3-inch caliber. So overall, staff recommends that the planning board approve this variance with the mitigation proposed. Again, this is due to the location of the existing trees. We believe that the applicant would suffer an unwarranted hardship to redevelop this property if the variance is not approved for the applicant to, again, demolish the existing property and to make improvements within the right-of-way. The applicant has met all of the noticing requirements. A pre-submittal meeting is actually not required for a local map amendment application, but nevertheless, to the applicant's credit, they did hold a community meeting, and that drew participation from surrounding property owners as well as residents. And you can see here, these were the primary questions and concerns that were raised to the applicant team at the time of that meeting. Some folks asked about timing of construction, which is a great question. The first phase would begin in the near to midterm, which is estimated at 3 to 10 years, and the second phase would follow at a minimum of 3 years after the first phase is opened and occupied. Residents and property owners also asked about the amenities of the park. Again, we don't have those details right now. They asked about the timing of the traffic study, which, as the board knows, during the LMA, a local area transportation review is also conducted at this time. We found that the proposed traffic generated will not exceed the area capacity. It will conform to the LATR guidelines. As you also know, additional review of those LATR requirements, such as the mitigations, will be conducted during the preliminary plan phase. And then there was another question about the implementation of the proposed bus rapid transit. I think we talked a little bit about this. The project is fully funded through design. Construction funding is still being refined, and completion currently is expected in 2029. So I believe that information was provided to those folks. It was also included in our staff report. During the review of this application, we did not receive any additional correspondence. So just to wrap everything up and point to why we believe that the planning board should make a positive recommendation for this application. The proposed commercial residential floating zone and the associated floating zone plan complies with the standards and requirements for approval. The application meets all of the specific requirements that are in section 5.1.3, specifically for an LMA. When requesting a floating zone for a property with a non-residential base, there are no prerequisites for the application, so we did not have to explore that by the code. And the proposed use in the zone are consistent with the goals of the White Flint 2 sector plan, as well as our general plan. We find it in the public interest and also compatible with adjacent development. I will say that the sector plan also specifically recommends this property for a major mixed-use redevelopment along the Pike. It also recommends specific design and connectivity recommendations, including short blocks and neighborhood green, and also frontage improvements, which the application addresses all of those recommendations. The preliminary forest conservation plan complies with Chapter 22A, and it also conforms with our environmental guidelines. We also coordinated with the City of Rockville and other state and county review agencies on this application, all who support this local map amendment. So again, just to close, before I turn it over back to Madam Chair, again, staff recommends, Vice Chair, excuse me, staff recommends approval of the local map amendment H155 and the associated floating zone plan with the proposed binding elements. We also will ask for your approval of us transmitting the recommendation to the hearing examiner. And then the second action is on the preliminary forest conservation plan with conditions and with the with the resolution. So with that wraps up our slides for today.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions from the commissioners? Okay, so we're going to give it to the applicant for their presentation. Thank you.
Great. Good morning again, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Planning Board. For the record, Heather Delapolsky, Land Use and Zoning Attorney with Wire Gill, here for the applicant in this case, Kimco Corporation. Have with me Abby Ochlack, who's here on behalf of the applicant, Kimco. In the audience, we have Mark Morlock and Ian Duke with VICA, who are our engineers. I have to my right, Miguel I should say this better. Irola. Okay, thank you. Sorry. With Horde Copeland Mock, they are our architects, and he is our land planner. And then to the left, Mike Warkowski with Wells and Associates, our traffic consultants. I'll turn it to Kimco in a minute just to give some very, very brief remarks. This is Kimco's they're relatively new to Montgomery County, and this is their first time at the Montgomery County Planning Board. So they just wanted to talk a little bit about their experience in the county, their goals for the site, why we're coming in for the rezoning here. But I will say that we are in full agreement with the staff report and presentation, as well as the proposed conditions and also the proposed binding elements associated with the floating zone plan. So in full agreement with staff. I'll turn it to Abby, and then we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Abby Ochlack. I'm the Director of Multifamily Development at Kimco Realty. And Heather's right. Kimco is a nationally, let me say that. Kimco is the North America's largest owner of grocery-anchored shopping centers and mixed-use properties in the country. Together, we own over 560 properties across the country. And as a subset, we do own approximately 36 properties in Maryland. However, this is our only property that is actually within Montgomery County. We do own 2 properties in the city of Gaithersburg nearby, and so we're very familiar with them, but this is our first one in Montgomery County. We did acquire the center in 2021, and so we are, again, relatively new. However, we've been in the DC metro area and Maryland for a very long time. We're excited about the opportunities here. As we mentioned earlier, in 2023, we redid the parking zoning so we could add more restaurants to the existing center, which should be opening up any day now, to be fully honest. So hopefully there'll be some exciting retail here, but this is for the long-term vision of the site. So we are long-term property owners, and we we are stewards of our land. And so we see this within a half acre of 2 metro stations that is an opportunity to add density and retail in a walkable environment here. And so we're excited for the opportunity, and giving the phasing and 2 blocks and adding the open space really will create something that is different than what's there today, but also start bringing kind of the transformation that's happened in the city of Rockville down the pike this way and towards what else has happened farther south of us. So we are really excited about this. And again, this is a long-term project, so this is step 1. And as retail leases turn over is when we'll start doing the other phases. And so this sets us in line, and so we can get ready in the future as that happens. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you again for your time. And we're looking forward to continue through this process.
I'm just wondering, you said long-term, so could you give us some kind of time frame? We're so excited, we want to see these things happening. So do you have a timing for phase 1 and also a timing for phase 2?
Yeah, I mean, Tamika gave kind of our general timeline. I think right now at this point, the earliest we would probably start construction is probably within 4 years. But obviously that kind of ebbs and flows with the market, right? And so we'll be following the market trends. We have leases at this center that are active, I believe, until 2029. But basically the minute the lease is done, we can put a shovel in the ground, right? So we can be doing the processing for the documents and all of that stuff. So we'll be looking to do all of that, and also those tenants could leave early. I don't know if you know this site, but there was a TGI Fridays that just closed. So obviously things are obviously ever evolving, and so we are constantly looking at all of that. And so our typical plan is to set a framework in place, and then we can jump in when all the puzzle pieces fall in line. So really that's how we would do phase 1. Again, we're leaving a big a big retail space for hope we could maybe get a grocer in the phase 1 building to kind of kickstart everything else. And then from there, we can kind of roll over to the high-rise building in phase 2 with the park. So typically our process is to have a building occupied for at least 2 years before we start construction for the following phase, basically to give retail the opportunity to kind of kickstart and have people know they're there before we interrupt things with a construction. So hence the kind of the 3 years before we do that is kind of typical process for us.
Thank you.
But yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was going to ask a question about actually what commercial tenants you were thinking of bringing in, but for that square that's over at the corner of the Pike and Bow Avenue is where you're expecting a grocery tenant as an anchor?
Yeah, there has been interest in some smaller groceries already in the center, and so we thought we would give the opportunity when this gets built that they could come in kind of a new space. Obviously, at this point in time, no tenant has been identified, no LOIs, no anything. So, but we see that there's opportunities for some of those smaller specialty grocers in the region, given that there's a Whole Foods not by, and I think a Harris Teeter, as well as a number of other ones. So. It's really that specialty grocer that we're looking at that's probably 25 to 35,000 square feet.
Okay, I was curious because there's a Giant to the south, there's a Safeway across from the Metro, and there's Trader Joe's on the other side of the Pike. I live near here, so I'm very familiar. There was a really good deli that was in there until very recently. No, a couple years ago now. But the only other question I had, I think this is a good project. I mean, I'm really excited to see it, particularly with the large amount of residential that's on there. It's good. I think the developments along Chapman that have happened to the north will make it a lot easier to get to the Metro from this space than it would have been even just a couple of years ago. I remember there was something in the staff report about construction and a signalized intersection at Rollins with the new road that was coming through. It's probably too far in advance to sort of have a really good handle on how that's going to happen, but that's a awfully congested area right there. It's a very odd little section. So I was just curious if you had any idea what would happen there at that Rollins intersection.
I mean, I think we have talked about it with all the jurisdictions. Obviously, we have Wells here who can answer specific questions, but we would be doing all the warrant studies to confirm if a light is necessary, what's required. I think ebb and flows of traffic who knows, are we going to be driving cars in 10 years? I don't know, right? So I think at this point, we're leaving the flexibility that at the time of construction and site plan, we'll do exactly what's required, and so we'll figure it out when we
Not a
get there.
problem, yeah. Yeah, I figured it's ahead of time, because there's a car wash that's there, and there's often backup on that space, and it's an odd little roundabout there. But otherwise, I think it looks like a really good project. I'm really excited to see this further development there and taking away some of that flat asphalt along the pike, and we're really, I think, sort of marching down, and we're going to connect up some nice projects there. So I think it looks good. Thanks for bringing it in.
Commissioner Linden, I pushed the wrong button, muting everybody. I didn't know it either. It's the first time I figured, oh, I can mute everyone. It's a lot of power, and I keep using it, misusing it, I should say.
Yeah, nothing on my end. Yeah, I just agree. It's a great project, great redevelopment of underutilized strip retail site, very close to Metro. So yeah, thanks, and the phasing makes a lot of sense. Yeah, looking forward to having a lot more housing in this area. So thank you.
Yeah, I should say thank you, Chair Ardy, not being here. I'm enjoying these items tremendously, approving them. They're really good projects, they're fun. Okay, so we're going to go for the approval process. Can I have a motion for approval of the local map amendment number 1554? The first one is to transmit the comments to Montgomery County Hearing Examiner with staff recommendation and conditions.
Just to clarify, you're transmitting a recommendation of approval to the
Yes.
hearing examiner? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'd move to transmit our recommendation of approval and other comments to the hearing examiner.
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
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 Okay, 3-0 for transmitting the comments. The second one is for the approval of the preliminary forest conservation plan number F20240990 with an adoption and with the conditions and adoptions of the resolution. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the preliminary forest conservation plan with the conditions and then adopt the resolution.
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
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 Okay, 3-0.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to continue on item 6, Kavanaugh Family Parcel Administrative Subdivision Plan Number 620240180 and Final Forest Conservation Plan Number F20240560. And we have our staff, Ms. Claiborne, take us through the presentation.
Thank you, and good morning, members of the board, and thank you for having me. For the record, I am Mariah Claiborne, Planner 2 for Up County Division and Lead Reviewer for Administrative Subdivision Plan Number 620240180 and concurrent Final Forest Conservation Plan Number F20240560 for Kavanaugh Family Parcel. Staff recommends approval with conditions for both the Administrative Subdivision Plan and Final Forest Conservation Plan for the subdivision of the existing parcel. The subdivision will create one lot for one new residential detached unit. The subject property is located at the southwest intersection of Damascus Road, which is a state highway, and Hipsley Mill Road, which is a rustic road, with Damascus Road being east of the property and Hipsley Mill Road being south of the property. The subject property lies within the Upper Hollings River watershed. Nearby the property is also Laytonsville Road, also considered a state highway, and Mount Tabor Methodist Cemetery to the east. The property is within the Agricultural Reserve, commonly known as the AR Zone, and is a part of the 2006 Damascus Master Plan area. Surrounding the property consists of detached residential dwelling units within the R200 and Rural Village Center overlay zones and are encumbered mainly by agricultural and rural open space within the AR Zone. The subject property is identified as parcel 960, consisting of 8.60 acres, with frontage on both Damascus and Hipsley Mill Road. The property is currently developed with a small barn located at the front eastern corner of the property, operating as a small market for honey and housing for bees, which borders parcel 990, owned by Montgomery County. The property has a circular driveway that connects to Damascus Road and Hipsley Mill Road, where eastern half of the driveway is shared with adjacent parcel 990. The parcel contains no forest, specimen, or other significant trees. The applicant has fulfilled all required noticing obligations, including sign posting and mailing of the notice of application on September 8, 2024. Staff has mailed the notice of public hearing and has received two community correspondence from the Patuxent Watershed Protective Association, providing support for the application, and an adjacent neighbor who asks general development questions and support the application as well. The application proposes to create one lot at 7.56 acres for one new detached residential unit, and the small barn used for marketing honey and housing for bees will be retained. The property will be served by private well and septic systems. The applicant is required to right-of-way dedication at 0.37 acres along Damascus Road and a right-of-way dedication of 0.67 acres along Hipsley Mill Road. The new private driveway will connect to the existing driveway, maintaining access from Damascus Road. An afforestation requirement will also be met on site, and all forests planted will be placed in a Category 1 conservation easement. Given the deed history of the subject property, as outlined in the staff report, the current parcel configuration originated on May 3, 1963. While tax records and the deed recorded identify the property as 9.21 acres in size, a recent survey of the land found that the property to be 8.60 acres. Thus, the application is exempt from the area and dimensional requirements of the AR zone and must meet the requirements of the rural zone. After dedication, the proposed 7.56 acre lot meets the 5-acre lot area minimum and 300 feet of frontage required by the prior rural zone. As stated earlier, the property is located near the intersection of Damascus Road and Hipsley Mill Road. Per the 2003 Rustic Roads Functional Master Plan, Hipsley Mill Road is classified as a rustic road with a 70-foot wide ultimate right-of-way width. Approximately 0.67 acres of the land is being dedicated to Hipsley Mills Road, which is sufficient to achieve the ultimate right-of-way width. The property is located within the Hollings River watershed, where the 2006 Damascus Master Plan environmental recommendation aims to protect water resources by promoting agricultural conservation measures and best management practices. Additionally, the plan seeks to protect forest areas and wetlands through the development process. As proposed, the overall development, including the conservation easement, will be consistent with the master's plan recommendations. The application satisfies the applicable requirements of the Forest Conservation Law. The site has a net tract area of 7.62 acres with no proposed forest clearing and results in an afforestation requirement of 1.52 acres that will be met on site, and all forests planted will be placed in a Category 1 conservation easement. The administrative subdivision plan conforms to the 2006 Damascus Master Plan. The public facilities are adequate. It complies with all provisions of the subdivision regulations. The lot is appropriate with respect to size, shape, width, and orientation for the proposed use, considering the legacy provisions. It also complies with the Chapter 22A Forest Conservation, and it meets the applicable development standards of the rural zone and AR zone respectively. Staff recommends approval of administrative subdivision plan number 620240180 and final forest conservation plan number F20240560 with conditions. And thank you. And if you have any questions, we're available.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
I have just a quick question on the afforestation, since there's nothing being removed. Does that mean an actual planting or just the Category 1 easement along the thing? What's the sort of planting requirements? Something like that?
There will be, sorry, for the record, Josh Penn, there will be 1.52 acres of forest conservation planting within the easement on site to meet their requirements.
So they will be planting in that easement, and that will be a requirement for
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, gotcha.
So is all the property forested, or?
There is no current forest on the property. It's
No.
farm field right now.
So it is farm, so they're just doing farming there, or there is no farming either?
So no, there's no farming, but we do have the applicant available if I could defer to him.
Yeah. I see that, Mr. David McKee, that's your presentation. Please go ahead and take it.
Thank you. Good morning, Dave McKee, Benning and Associates. Here for the applicant. We agree with all of the conditions of approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I can say the property has been used as a crop field over the years, in addition to the honey market there. So that there's a possibility, a good chance that will continue, minus the home site area and the forest area. But currently the property is wide open as an open crop field. And happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, presentations? Okay, so if none, we're going to continue with the approval. So do I have a motion to approve the administrative subdivision plan number 620240180 with conditions presented by staff?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the administrative subdivision plan.
A second.
All for approval?
Aye.
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 Okay, 3-0. The second one is, do I have a motion for approval of Forest Conservation Plan number F2024-0560 with recommended conditions by staff?
Yeah. I'll move to approve the Forest Conservation Plan with conditions.
Second.
All for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, aye, if that didn't come through.
Okay, 3-0. All approved. I think
I guess so.
that concludes today's presentation. Thank you, everyone. Until next week.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Spring break.
Bye-bye. Have a good spring break.